Welcome to Celebrity Scoop, where we bring you the latest and juiciest royal news. Today, we're diving deep into the royal archives to examine the intriguing dynamic between the late Prince Philip and the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle. Prince Philip, a man who had to change his name, renounce his Greek and Danish royal titles, and give up his flourishing naval career to stand by Queen Elizabeth, was reportedly very, very disappointed in Meghan Markle. The reason? He thought Meghan should have followed his footsteps and relinquished her identity, her career, her independence, and most importantly her voice, the moment she tied the knot with Prince Harry. In the mind of the Duke of Edinburgh, Meghan should have quietly faded into the background just as he did decades ago. He envisioned her dutifully supporting her husband, playing the royal part perfectly, always ready to smile for the cameras, but never to speak her mind. Royal biographer Ingrid Seward shares, "He just could not understand why she couldn't support Harry and help him rather than wanting to have her voice." Let's pause and reflect on those words, rather than wanting to have her voice. This is where the issue really lies. It wasn't about Meghan being perceived as too Hollywood or too outspoken. It was about her refusal to be silenced, her determination to hold on to who she was, and her unwillingness to conform to an archaic royal system that was never designed to accommodate women like her. Philip chose to surrender his identity, but Meghan was expected to give up much more: her freedom, her voice, her passion, her platform, all for the sake of acceptance. The idea that a woman should mute herself to serve an institution is not only sexist, but it's also toxic. Philip believed Meghan should have just quietly stepped into the background like he did, but Meghan, a woman of the 21st century, thought otherwise. And can we blame her? But let's delve deeper into the real issue here. This isn't about Meghan Markle being too Hollywood or too outspoken, far from it. The real issue at stake here is something far more profound and, dare we say, archaic. It's about a woman's refusal to be silent, to surrender who she is to satisfy an outdated royal system. It's about a woman standing her ground, asserting her individuality, and challenging the status quo. Consider this for a moment. Meghan Markle, a successful actress, philanthropist, and strong advocate for women's rights, was expected to abandon everything she stood for the moment she married into the royal family. She was expected to relinquish her career, her independence, and most importantly, her voice. In a world where we are striving for equality, where we champion the individuality of every person, this expectation is not just incongruous, it's downright preposterous. The notion that a woman should step back, play a supporting role and suppress her voice is not just regressive, but it's also fundamentally unjust. This issue is not about Meghan Markle per se, it's about every woman who has been asked to tone down, to fit into a mould, to surrender their identity to conform to societal or institutional expectations. It's about the millions of women who are silenced every day, their voices drowned out in the cacophony of patriarchal norms. And when Meghan chose to walk away, to assert her right to have a voice, she didn't just stand up for herself. She stood up for every woman who was ever told to stay silent. She sent a powerful message to the world that no woman should ever have to surrender her identity, her voice, or her freedom. The issue was Meghan's refusal to be silent, a refusal to surrender who she was to satisfy an outdated royal system. And in doing so, she didn't just challenge the royal establishment, she challenged an antiquated mindset that has no place in our society today. One that continues to suppress women's voices, their dreams, and their identities. But here's the twist in this royal tale. Prince Philip, the man who willingly chose to renounce his name and identity, who gave up his naval career to support his wife, the Queen, expected Meghan Markle to do the same. But the circumstances were not the same. Philip made a choice, a personal sacrifice for love. Meghan, on the other hand, was expected to give up her freedom, her voice, her passion, and her platform, just to be accepted into the royal family. To some, this expectation might seem reasonable, a simple trade-off for the privilege of royalty. But it's not just about Meghan. It's about every woman who has ever been asked to silence herself, to diminish her light, to serve an institution, a system, a tradition. It's about every woman who has been told that her voice is less important than the status quo, that her desires, her ambitions, her identity are less valuable than the needs of an institution. In this tale, Meghan Markle becomes a symbol of resistance against such expectations. She stands for every woman who refuses to be silenced, who refuses to give up her freedom and her identity for the sake of fitting in. She is a reminder that women, just like men, have the right to their voices, their passions, their platforms. This isn't just about the royal family or Meghan Markle. It's about the twisted expectations of a society that still, in the 21st century, expects women to surrender their identities and their voices to serve an institution. It's about the toxic and sexist idea that a woman's worth is tied to her silence, her obedience, her willingness to play by the rules of the game, even when the game is rigged against her. This isn't the 1950s anymore. The idea that a woman should silence herself to serve an institution is not just sexist, it's toxic. And it's high time we challenge these outdated notions and fight for a world where every woman, just like every man, has the right to her voice, her identity, her freedom. Meghan, however, had a different response. Rather than conforming to the expectations of a royal system that seemed bent on muting her, Meghan Markle chose a different path. She refused to be a shadow in the royal family, a figure merely seen but not heard. She came with her own light, her own voice, and her own platform, and she wasn't about to give those up without a fight. Meghan's refusal to shrink herself into the mould of the silent, supportive wife was not well received by the royal family. In fact, it was met with disappointment, criticism, and a series of negative headlines. But Meghan, ever the epitome of resilience, stood firm in the face of these challenges, refusing to be silenced. Remember, Meghan didn't just arrive at the palace doors as an individual. She came as a woman who had built a successful career, who had a voice that resonated with millions, and who had a platform that she had used to advocate for causes she deeply believed in. She was, and remains, a woman of substance, a woman of passion, and a woman of influence. So, when asked to give up her freedom, her voice, her independence, all the things that made her who she was, Meghan said no. She was not willing to surrender her identity to fit into the royal framework. She was not willing to stifle her voice to appease an institution. She was not willing to dim her light to blend into the shadows. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the crux of Meghan's refusal. It was a refusal to be silenced, a refusal to be sidelined, a refusal to be anything less than who she was, and who she continues to be. No wonder Meghan said no thanks. She wasn't here to be a shadow. She came with light, and they couldn't handle it. So, what do you think about this royal controversy? Let's take a moment to reflect on the choices Meghan Markle made, and those she was expected to make. In choosing to keep her voice, her identity, and her freedom, she sent a powerful message to the world. She reminded us all that we have the right to remain true to ourselves, even when the pressure to conform is immense. Now let's consider the flip side. Meghan was stepping into a world with centuries-old traditions and expectations. Some would argue that she should have understood the implications and adapted accordingly. They see her refusal to play the royal game as a rejection of the institution she willingly joined. In the end, Meghan chose a path that was right for her. She chose to walk away rather than give up her voice. She chose to stand up to a system that she saw as oppressive rather than silently comply. But what about you? What do you think? Was Meghan right in making the choices she did? Was she justified in choosing her voice over tradition? Or do you think she should have conformed, played the royal game, and stayed silent? Our perspectives on these matters often reflect our own beliefs and values. Perhaps you admire Meghan's determination to be true to herself, or perhaps you feel she should have shown more respect for the institution she joined. Either way, your views are important, and we'd love to hear them. This is a conversation that goes beyond the royal family. It's about individuality, freedom of speech, and the right to be who we are. It's about challenging outdated norms and daring to be different. So let's get this discussion started. Share your thoughts, your opinions, your insights. This is your platform, just as much as it is ours. Let us know in the comments, do you think Meghan was right to walk away? Or should she have played the royal game and stayed silent? That brings us to the end of this episode of Celebrity Scoop. We hope you found our deep dive into the royal dynamics as fascinating as we did. If you're keen on keeping up with the latest royal news or just love a good story, don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button. Your support is what keeps us going. Until next time, keep the conversation alive, question the norms, and stay curious. Thank you for tuning in, and remember to subscribe for more juicy royal scoops.